Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to Phil Does 3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the United States, 10 AM in Australia and 1 AM in the UK. Good evening Sniper Echo, good to see you. Thanks for popping into chat and saying hello to everyone. We are working on an Art Deco building, interior and exterior, that we're creating in the Unreal Engine 4.16.2. We're going to be doing a fly through of an environment and then inside the Art Deco building and back out again, creating a cinematic basically. Just as a heads up, Epic have an event tomorrow on Twitch where they're doing a preview of 4.17 version of the engine, which they're releasing shortly. I think you can actually download it in the launcher, in the Epic Games launcher, as a preview, but if you want to test it out, but I wouldn't suggest it until they actually release it officially, because it's going to be full of, it may have bugs, so just to be on the safe side, if you're doing any production work, wait until they release it officially. We're working with 4.16.2. Again, just for the benefit of anyone new to my channel, I'm going to play this video, which is our environment. They're just still shots of the environment. I'm going to mute that audio. Yeah, they're just stills of the environment we've already created in Unreal Engine. We're working on the interior of the building at the moment. So while that plays through, I'll just grab a quick drink. Of course, our environment will be fully animated, all the trees sway in the breeze and all that sort of good stuff. It's easier for me to show you the video than to try and turn on real time in the actual engine because OBS really doesn't like real time rendering at the moment. It may be a problem with the new version of OBS 19.03. But so long as we don't turn real time on, we should be okay. So basically we've created a small environment. It's a clearing surrounded by a forest. We have our small yard section here in front of our building and a pond in front of the building as well. What we're going to do is once we've finished setting up the interior of the building, we're going to do a final pass over the exterior just to make sure everything looks okay. Any areas that might need just a bit of prettying up we'll tackle at the end, as well as the fog. The fog in the level at the moment is a bit too high. I won't adjust that back though until we've got everything set up and ready. Alright, so we have our Art Deco building here. Now what I've done actually is I've been, we've brought most of our assets in. There was a few left and we hadn't tackled the floor sections. I wanted to retexture the floors because the original that I did back in 2011, these floor sections really needed improving. I did one of them last night, which is this one here. That's why it looks weird. Basically what I'm doing here is I've set up material IDs, so just two plain colors of white and blue that I could bring into Substance Painter, which is what I've done. Let's load up that floor that I've created. And that's this one here. So basically what I've done is I've taken set up two material IDs for two different textures. We created our floor here. Let's zoom in a bit here. That we can start bringing in and setting up. So let's export these textures so that we can import this asset into Unreal. Remember guys, if you've got any questions or anything you're not sure about, please feel free to pop into chat and ask me. If you just want to pop in and say hello, that's always welcome. If you just want to watch though, that's completely fine. Select our folder. We'll work at a 2K texture. That should be big enough. The great thing about Substance Painter, of course, is if you find your texture is either too big or too small, you can come back in and re-export it. Let's export that texture. Again, generally, guys that are familiar with me and my channel know that I prefer to work in Mari to do my texturing, but Substance Painter works really well in conjunction with Unreal, so I'm using Substance for most of the texturing work for this level. But generally in other projects I do, when I use Eon View, I prefer to use Mari, simply because Mari, by the Foundry, you can create really large texture sizes, whereas I have a feeling that Substance Painter is still limited to either 4K or 8K textures, and I can go up to 65K in Mari without breaking a sweat on my PC, so... Alright, that all looks good. Let's just close that down and jump into Unreal. Just before we bring the floor in, and that floor section I think is for the front here of the building. We're going to just finish off this upper level here with these side pieces. So I'm going to duplicate these assets. Make sure I've got them all. I think I have. And again, we duplicate them so that we save on poly count and memory and all that sort of thing. Speeds up the game engine. We'll do a rotation of 180 degrees. And again, the fog in this level is a little bit heavy because I haven't adjusted it. Like I said, I'll do that at the very end once we've finished setting everything up. Make sure that's sitting underneath of our upper railing there. Go. All right. So basically what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to separate these side sections, and these side sections sort of branch off of the main room here. So they're sort of like a separate small hall section through the building on either side. I've done that just to make this room look a bit more interesting. Alright, let's bring in our floor though for this part of the building, I think. And the other thing I did last night too was actually enlarge these paintings above the doors to take up the full width of the wall. It just looks more interesting than having those smaller paintings that we had yesterday where they'd finish about the middle of the wall. I've just made them completely fill that space above the door. Again, just makes it look a bit more interesting. But let's jump into our models folder here and import the floor. And we're going to just set our shaders up, if I can find where it's put them. There we go. I think I've got to delete those two, we're not using them now. It's just these two, the white and the blue. So we'll start with the white, I guess, which is the middle of the floor. Let's import our textures. And it'll be these ones here. So I want the color, metallic, normal, and roughness. And the reason that the engine didn't bring in the textures from Substance Painter is because in Max I saved the file out looking like this. So as far as Unreal knows, I've only got a white and a blue texture assigned to it. If I'd come back into Max and reassigned the texture in here with the ones that we'd exported from Substance Painter, then and done a re-export again, then Unreal would recognize our textures properly. But it's no big deal for us to fix the shader up. So we have our color, our metallic, our normal, and our roughness. Okay, let's save that. And I'm just going to also rename that shader before I get lost as to what I'm doing. There we are. And we'll call it entry floor inner underscore map. That's just so if I want to come back later on, I don't get lost and I know what I'm working on. Let's also fix up the outer section of that tile. So that'll be this one. And for this one, we want the color, the metallic, the normal, and the roughness. Now again, I'm getting Substance Painter to export these as all separate textures. You can get Substance Painter to include your metallic, roughness, and an ambient occlusion if you have it in one texture, and use just the one texture as opposed to three in the engine. And that's a good way to work, so it'll save a bit of memory for you. And I'd suggest you do it that way, really. And that's just a setting you change in Substance Painter here. They have a template for UE4, and by default, when you use that template for UE4, it'll save all your three textures into one texture. You just use then the red, green, or blue channel from that texture to choose either the metallic, the roughness, or the ambient occlusion. But if you find you get confused that way, saving them out as separate textures is an easier way to go. You'll just use a bit more memory, that's all. So we have our color, metallic, our normal, and our roughness. No, we don't want the emissive. We don't want to have a glowing floor. And that's our texture there. Let's save that. And again, I'm just going to rename that material so that we know what it is. Okay. Now, where has it put my floor? There we are. Just going to zoom back out here so we can get a look at our floor in action. Okay, let's drop that into our level. Now we are going to have to scale it up because we scaled the initial building up when we created it, and the rotation's off as well, so we'll have to fix that. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. We just lift it up above our actual floor, there we go, and scale it up. Now again, you see what I've done here. I've got a cement floor. Let's jump up to the top level. I have a cement floor here that I'm then bringing in a separate mesh to texture up. Now you could texture the floor directly if you wanted to. Doing it this way though, you have the option then, if you wanted to make a game, of breaking the floor using physics, like breaking the tiles and seeing the cement floor underneath. And that can be an interesting thing to do if you're creating a game and you're making a physical. You create destruction basically on the floor so that maybe when you shoot a gun at the floor, the tile breaks. That's the reason I'm doing it this way. Again, to show you a good way to actually make an object that you could then break, as opposed to just placing a texture directly on the ground there where the cement part of the floor is. Let's scale it up just a bit more. going to deselect it. We'll get back here into an area where I don't have quite so much fog going on. And I think we need to pull our floor down just a little bit. I think it's a bit high. Alright, now what we're going to do here at these door jamb sections is we're going to place a separate mesh object ground piece, and probably what I'll end up doing here is adding some sort of interesting mosaic tile pieces through here in front of the doors. Alright, it looks like our floor is just still a little bit too small. So let's scale it up a little bit more. Okay, now the reason I chose this colour tile, this green, it fits well with an Art Deco type style of building, and also a main stairwell which I haven't actually brought in yet, which is this one here, actually uses the green tile as well, and I wanted to get them to match, so through the side here. That's the reason I've chosen the green. We'll use a different looking tile for the back of the building and the upper floors anyway. We're actually going to be placing, I think, wooden floors through the top of the building, and we'll choose a different style of floor for the very back of the building. I'm getting completely lost now. Alright, so let's just pull back here into the corner and have a look at our handiwork. Again, I haven't actually placed a reflection zone in here yet, but once we do that, we'll get a bit more accurate reflection going on in our tile on the ground. I'm just thinking it still may need to be a little bit bigger though. So I'm going to scale it up just a bit more. Remember, we do have a bit of play here because when we made the building, we made this inner brick wall, which is about, you know, so thick. So we have a bit of play that we can hide stuff in between that wall section. And that's what I've done down here actually, if I can find it. Here. You see these wooden archways? I'm just using the same asset over and over again. And that's the asset there. It's that more squarish section. And what I've done here is I've used the same asset, but I've hidden most of the other half of that asset, if I can get in here to show you, actually in the wall. It's actually in that cavity of the brickwork. And that saved me having to make a second asset that was half the size of the first one. So I'm just saving a bit of poly count there by basically hiding half of that asset in the wall on either side. Just little tricks like that that help you save on memory and poly count and all that sort of stuff. Just checking the floor here to make sure it's all lined up correctly. May bring it forward just a bit more. Just pull up and have a look at it from a distance. Okay. And again, the reflection zones we'll do at the very end once we have the rest of the building populated. It just makes it easier. That's the other reason, the other thing I wanted to actually explain here. Now we have created curtains and all that type of stuff, but I don't place them until the very end. I want to concentrate on doing the walls first and the floors and ceilings. Once that's done, we will come through and populate the level with the curtains. The reason I do it at the very end is because I don't want the curtains to get in the way of me working on, say, the walls. And if I put the curtains in first, I'm either going to have to hide them, move them, or it's going to make working with the wall sections much more difficult. See, basically you think about it like if you were making a building. You do the interior walls and floors, and once all that's done, you can start placing your curtains and cushions and then the furniture. You just think of it like an actual building you're making in real life and tackle it the same sort of way. Okay, now we may tackle another floor section on stream today, or we'll see how we go. But I think what we're going to do now is we're going to work on this little upper hallway here. And I know I want the plaster wall sections for up here, so let's grab a couple of them. We'll go with the narrow ones to begin with and see if they're going to work, and if not, we'll come back and grab the wider ones. Let's start in the middle and work our way back. And what I actually should do here before I place the actual plaster paneling, we should place the columns up here as well. And we're going to use the same columns we're using down here. Let's grab this one. And the reason I'm grabbing this one as opposed to these ones here, I actually scaled these up a little bit for these two corner pieces. And I want more the standard size column for the upper level. So you see that the ceiling here is higher than down the bottom as well. Bit too much. Again, once we've actually got the floor and ceilings in, we may have to come back and just make some small adjustments to these to make sure they're lined up correctly, because the floor will take a small part of the height from the base of the column, and the plaster ceiling will take a small bit from the top, so a column may need to be shrunk down just a bit. But again, they're things we can do at the end once we've got everything else lined up correctly. Again, I'm just going to make sure it's not poking through my building here. We're going to come through and also add wooden frames around our windows like we have here. But we're going to have to create them in Max because I didn't use them in the original, and I do want to do that in the remake here. Okay. Again, I just popped out to make sure it wasn't actually going outside of our building wall. Now, I've got to try and remember what I did here. I think... yeah, I have another column over here. Just got to work out which angle I'm going at here. I think like this. Trying to recall, I have a feeling I may have placed a column in the middle of these two windows. I think I did. In the original, that is, because I made this building back in 2011, just for anyone again new that doesn't know what I'm doing. I made this Art Deco building in 2011 using the UDK, and we're recreating it now because I want to see the changes that Epic have made to the lighting in the engine in UE4. But I do want to try and keep the design similar to the way it used to be. Again, see, the texture work here is terrible, but we're not going to see any of this in a wall because we're going to have a window frame that covers the window. But yeah, I have a feeling I placed another column in the middle of the wall. Although maybe I didn't. Let's say we did, and we'll go from there. In fact, just before we do that, let's jump quickly back into the video of the original. I just want to check it. Yeah, we do. I have columns either side of the window. In the middle of the window, yep. Alright. I thought I did. I just wanted to double check. So let's start here and duplicate this column. This is the reason I wanted to place the columns before I did the plaster work, because we're going to have to adjust the plaster work to take into account the column. Just going to sink that into the wall a little bit. Make sure it's not going through into our other side. And it looks like it is actually just there. So let's just pull it back out a little. There we go. And so I want to move this column in line with this one. Pardon me, guys. We can do it by eye, and we can adjust it once I get the overhead beams in. Which means we need another column on this side of the door. Again, let's make sure it's not sticking through the wall. Right. And they're lined up, so that should be good. Okay, let's bring in the wooden overhead beam next, which is going to be one of these. Let's line that up to this column. Now, I'm going to scale it up so that we intersect both columns. And we can use that to line up this beam now. Okay, let's duplicate it another time. Again, line it up to this column and it should automatically line to the second one. If I designed my building correctly. I'm just going to push this in a bit more. Alright, let's fix these two plaster panel pieces now. And they need to be scaled up. Not that much. Let's get another one. Hope with a bit of luck we can fit one down here without scaling it too much. And let's copy that for down the other end. Now these windows are going to pose a unique sort of problem because of the shape of them and the position of them on this wall. We'll tackle all the windows that are going to give us that we're going to have to create unique plaster pieces for it at the end once we've placed all the rest of the plaster in the building. But we can certainly use, we can place one straight one here, so let's do that. We also have to remember we're going to have a wooden window frame that's going to stick out around the outside of the window a little. In a similar way it does here. No, again, I'm scaling this up, but I probably don't need to because the little gaps we see at the top will generally be hidden when we place the ceiling plaster in. And I'm taking that up just to the edge of the window there. We're going to have to create a unique plaster piece for the top and a unique plaster rectangle for the base as well. But again, we'll tackle that at the end once we've done the rest of the plaster in the building. Let's duplicate this again. This is quite a narrow section. Again, we've really got to start being careful we don't scale this too much, so we don't start distorting our pattern. We could probably, if we're careful, still use this piece. Yeah, I think we should be okay. I'm going to have to scale it in. Oh no, it should be okay. I just don't want to cover up the edge of that window. Well, I think we'll be okay if we're careful. We're going to have the same sort of problem here. It's a very narrow section of wall. We'll see if we can get away with using this one again. Just. Okay, let's do the one over here now.